The courtroom was silent. Emily sat on one side, dressed in a grey suit, staring straight ahead. Across from her sat Daniel, the man she had been married to for 12 years. Neither of them looked at each other. The judge glanced at both of them before asking one simple question: "Is there any possibility of reconciliation?" Emily answered immediately, "No, Your Honor." Her voice carried no emotion. Daniel simply lowered his eyes. After months of arguments, sleepless nights, and endless paperwork, today was supposed to be the end of everything. Or so Emily believed. What happened in the next few minutes would leave everyone in that courtroom speechless, and it all started with one sentence Daniel wasn't even supposed to say. 12 years earlier, Emily and Daniel had met at a small coffee shop in Chicago. He wasn't rich, he wasn't famous, he worked long hours as an electrician, while Emily dreamed of building a successful marketing career. Their relationship wasn't perfect, but they laughed together, they struggled together. When Daniel proposed with a simple silver ring, Emily cried with happiness. She believed they could survive anything. For years, they did. They rented a tiny apartment, shared one old car, counted every dollar before paying bills, but somehow they were happy. Then everything changed. Emily received a promotion at work. Her salary doubled. Soon she was traveling for business, attending luxury events, meeting wealthy executives. Her life became faster, more glamorous. Daniel stayed exactly the same. He still fixed broken electrical systems, still came home covered in dust, still smiled every evening as if nothing had changed. At first Emily admired his humility. Later she began feeling embarrassed by it. When co-workers asked what her husband did for a living, she hesitated before answering. Slowly, she stopped inviting Daniel to company events. She convinced herself it was because he felt uncomfortable. The truth was different. She didn't want people comparing him to the successful men she worked with every day. Daniel noticed, but he never complained. Instead, he tried even harder. He cooked dinner, cleaned the house. Left encouraging notes inside Emily's purse before every business trip. She rarely acknowledged them. One night Daniel prepared a surprise anniversary dinner. Candles. Flowers. Emily arrived home 2 hours late. She looked at the table. Then checked her phone. "I completely forgot," she said. Daniel smiled. "Anyway, it's okay. We can still eat together," she sighed. "I'm exhausted." She walked upstairs without touching the food. Daniel sat alone for nearly an hour. The candles burned out one by one. That night, something inside him quietly broke. Weeks turned into months. The conversations became shorter. The silence became louder. Emily spent more time at work than at home. Daniel spent more time wondering what he had done wrong. One evening, Emily finally said the words he feared most. "I think we need a divorce." Daniel stared at her. Not because he didn't hear her, because he couldn't believe the woman who once promised forever now spoke as if ending 12 years was just another meeting on her calendar. He asked only one question: "Is there someone else?" Emily looked away. No, and technically, she wasn't lying. There wasn't another man. There was simply another version of life she wanted. One without Daniel. Without sacrifices, without feeling tied to someone she believed had stopped growing. Daniel didn't argue. He didn't beg. He quietly nodded. Double quotes, "If that's what truly makes you happy." Emily expected anger. Instead, she found kindness. For some reason, that made her even more uncomfortable. The divorce process moved quickly. Friends chose sides. Families stopped speaking. Boxes were packed. Pictures disappeared from the walls. Their home slowly stopped looking like a home. Then came the final hearing. Emily believed this chapter was finally over. She had no idea Daniel had been carrying one secret throughout the entire Divorce, a secret that would change everything. The moment he opened his mouth, the courtroom was quiet. The judge adjusted the papers one last time. Everything appears to be in order, he said. Once these documents are signed, your marriage will officially be dissolved. Emily reached for the pen without hesitation. Daniel signed his name slowly, then placed the pen back on the table. The judge looked up. Before I finalize the order, does either party wish to make a final statement? Emily shook her head. No, Your Honor. The judge turned toward Daniel. He remained silent for a few seconds, then he stood. His voice was calm. I only want to say one thing. Everyone in the courtroom looked at him. Daniel turned toward Emily for the first time that morning. He smiled, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with peace. I forgive you. Emily frowned. Daniel continued. I forgive you for forgetting the dreams we once shared. I forgive you for believing success is measured by money. And I forgive you for leaving before asking whether I was still fighting for us. The courtroom was completely silent. Then he spoke the words that changed everything. But before I walk away, there's something you deserve to know. Emily slowly lifted her eyes. Daniel reached into his briefcase and handed a sealed envelope to his attorney. The attorney passed it to the judge, who then handed it to Emily. Inside was a letter, along with several medical reports. Emily looked confused. What is this? Daniel took a deep breath. 6 months ago, I was diagnosed with a rare heart condition. Emily froze. I was told I would likely need a heart transplant within a year. Her hands began to shake. Daniel continued quietly. I didn't tell you because every time I tried, you were rushing to another meeting or another flight. Tears filled Emily's eyes. I didn't want you to stay with me because you felt guilty. I wanted you to stay because you loved me. His words hit harder than any accusation ever could. The courtroom was silent, except for Emily's quiet sobs. She remembered every missed dinner, every ignored phone call, every anniversary she forgot. Every handwritten note she never bothered to read. She had spent months convincing herself that Daniel lacked ambition. She never realized he had been hiding fear instead of weakness. Daniel smiled gently. I don't blame you anymore. I just hope one day you remember the man who loved you more than he loved himself. He picked up his jacket, turned toward the exit, and began walking away. For the first time since filing for divorce, Emily panicked. Daniel, wait. The entire courtroom stopped. She stood from her chair. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry. Daniel didn't answer. She walked closer. I was wrong. I kept chasing a better life and forgot the person who gave me the best years of mine. Daniel looked into her eyes. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, he smiled sadly. Sometimes love isn't enough to fix what's already broken. Emily burst into tears. No, I don't expect forgiveness. I just wish I had realized it sooner. Daniel nodded. Maybe this is something we both needed to learn. The judge quietly postponed leaving the bench, allowing the moment to unfold. Emily looked at the divorce papers lying on the table. Just minutes earlier, they had felt like freedom. Now they felt unbearably heavy. Months later, Emily left her high-paying corporate job. She started volunteering at a local heart foundation, helping families facing the same illness Daniel had hidden. She often visited him during his treatment, not as his wife, but as someone trying to make peace with the past. They spent hours talking, sometimes laughing, sometimes sitting in silence. Their marriage had ended, but resentment had not survived. Nearly a year later, Daniel finally received the call every patient waits for. A donor heart had become available. The surgery was long. Complicated. Emily waited outside the operating room the entire night. When the surgeon finally stepped out, he smiled. The operation was successful. Emily closed her eyes in relief. She whispered a quiet thank you. Months later, Daniel recovered one autumn afternoon. They met again at the same small coffee shop where they had first fallen in love 12 years earlier. They weren't there to restart the past, they were there to appreciate it. Daniel looked out the window and smiled. You know, Emily looked at him. I finally understand what you meant. What? He replied softly. Success isn't about having more, it's about appreciating what you already have before it's gone. Emily nodded with tears in her eyes. This time, she understood, because sometimes the most powerful words are spoken only after goodbye. The end.